democracy? Democracy. Democracy is not what these people need. Hell, it's not even what they want. America's been trying to install democracies in nations for a century, and it hasn't worked one time. These countries don't have the most basic building blocks to support a democracy. Little things like we ought to be tolerant of those who disagree with us. We ought to be tolerant of those who worship a different God than us. That a journalist ought to be able to disagree with the president. And you think that you can just march into these countries based on some fundamentalist religious principles, drop a few bombs, topple a dictator, and start a democracy? Give me a break. People don't want freedom. They want boundaries, rules, protection from invaders and from themselves. People need a leader who can give them both the support and the constraints to keep chaos at bay.
The bottom line on nuclear weapons is that when the president gives the order, it must be followed. There's about 4 minutes between the order being given and the people responsible for launching nuclear weapons to do so. As president, I will make it clear that the United States will treat cyber attacks just like any other attack. We will be ready with serious political, economic, and military responses.
We came, we saw, he died.
With her, you'll end up in World War III.
I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran.
Right now, Senator, for us to control all of the airspace in Syria would require us to go to war against Syria and Russia.
Seemingly, the US-NATO strategy was to deceive Russia into building a large contingent of ground forces to defend its borders at a huge cost to its already struggling economy with potentially crippling consequences. It is important to note that no nation in the world at this present time has a land army that could successfully invade another country because of the massive cost. However, Putin has been too clever to fall into that trap, but insists on the right to use nuclear weapons if attacked. Since NATO's plan has not worked, it is likely the US-NATO forces will create an incident on the Estonian-Russia border to draw Russia into a local conflict with minimal threat to Western Europe or the United States. Similar to the 2008 George Bush proxy war in Georgia that Russia crushed very quickly. Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia and Slovenia are members of NATO, with Serbia possibly to join. There have been reports that NATO has been pressuring those nations bordering Russia with threats such as economic and membership penalties imposed by the EU. Serbia is the latest nation to be bullied into joining NATO. Former NATO commander Philip Breedlove has been labelled a warmonger and has had to defend himself over leaked emails that showed him plotting to push President Obama to escalate tensions with Russia, revealed by hackers who broke into his email account and exposed Breedlove's plot to start World War III. The secretive Bilderberg group that is also connected to NATO has pushed for Hillary Clinton to be the next president. Hillary Clinton has made comments in the past that she is willing to use nuclear weapons on Iran, and has been described and attributed with a willingness to go to war, that even surpasses the most aggressive neoconservative. There is also a covert religious war going on that is not at all publicised due to the mainstream media press focusing on national governments and organisations like NATO. Both the United States and the Vatican were historic enemies of Russia while it was the Soviet Union, and are still enemies today. The East-West schism of the Russian Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church occurred in 1054, and since that time both churches have been bitter opponents. In the early years of the Orthodox-Catholic dispute, both the Pope of the Catholic Church and the Patriarch of the Orthodox Church were calling each other the Antichrist. Maybe they both were right. The US-Vatican alliance helped bring down the Berlin Wall, which in turn further weakened the Soviet Union until its collapse in 1991. The US papal diplomatic relations were not only forged by the Roman Catholic infiltration of government agencies, but in familiarity when working together in a common goal to check the advance of communism, which is opposed to capitalism and religion. The US has not always had diplomatic relations with the Vatican because of opposing ideologies. The Vatican is historically totalitarian and is opposed to religious liberty. However, on January the 10th, 1984, the Vatican has achieved diplomatic relations with the United States. The contest between the Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church has troubled those very same countries that the US-NATO coalition is sniping off one by one. There were tensions in Ukraine over the loyalty of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, who are loyal to Russia. And there are also tensions in other countries like Estonia and Serbia, who are of the Orthodox faith. Serbia is deeply divided because of the carrots and sticks approach of the EU dangling the reward of EU membership if Serbia joins NATO. Serbia is a staunch Eastern Orthodox state that has historical and present-day diplomatic relations with Russia. The annexation of Crimea is another controversy, with the Crimean population voting to be annexed by Russia, the majority of civilians in Crimea of the Russian Orthodox faith. The saga continues between the US-Vatican alliance versus the Orthodox Russian Federation.
In a letter dated 22 January 1870, Mazzini wrote to Pike. Now, Albert Pike is this high mason who wrote the manual, if you like, of Scottish Freemasonry. He said the following: "We must allow all of the federations to continue just as they are. It must appear as things are as they were in the beginning, with their systems, their central authorities, and diverse modes of correspondence between high grades of the same right, organized as they are at present, but we must create a super right, which will remain unknown, to which we will call those Masons of high degree, whom we shall select. With regard to our brothers in Masonry, these men must be pledged to the strictest secrecy. Through this supreme right, we will govern all Freemasonry, which will become the one international center, the more powerful because its direction will be unknown." Now, Albert Pike wrote a letter to Mazzini, and that was dated August 15, 1871, in which he propagated that there should be a world order, a one order where all nations are under the control of one central organization. And in order to achieve this, they planned, and there are numerous quotes for this, so I've put a number on the screen because some will say, I don't trust this, I don't trust that, I don't trust the other. Here are references down there, there are references up there, there will be references in other slides, so it comes from different sources. He said, and this was, by the way, on display in the British Museum and could be seen there until it was taken away. The First World War, to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia, protector of orthodoxy, and bring about an atheistic communistic state. Did that happen? Yes. Now that was written long before this event. Long before this event. This was written in 1871. This war broke out in 1914. The Second World War, that's also written long before the event, to originate between Great Britain and Germany, to strengthen communism as antithesis to the Judeo-Christian culture, and bring about a Zionist state in Israel. Did it achieve this objective? Yes. In fact, after this war, Israel, in its present form, was reinstated under the protection of Britain. And then, interestingly enough, a Third World War, a Middle Eastern war involving Judaism and Islam and spreading internationally. That's fascinating. Is that on the cards, or what do you think? Certainly sounds like we are on track. Well, here's another quote, just in case people don't like that quote. Mazzini with Pike developed a plan for 3 world wars so that eventually every nation would be willing to surrender its national sovereignty to a world government. The first war was to end the Tsarist regime in Russia, the second to allow the Soviet Union to control Europe, the Third World War was to be in the Middle East between Muslim and Jews and would result in Armageddon. Interesting. Now, how were they going to do it? Let's read what Albert Pike wrote about these wars and how they were going to be unleashed. He wrote, quote, "We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist," so the destroyer and the atheist, "and we will provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism. Origin of savagery and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the minority of revolutionaries will exterminate these destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, will receive the pure light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. The destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time." Wow, what a clever plan. You create atheism as an antithesis to the Judeo-Christian culture. You have these two clash until they rub each other up, and then out of that you will get a new world order where you have a new religion which is far more esoteric and actually honors Satan. Isn't that a rather clever plan?
When the president gives the order, it must be followed.